In today's video, we're diving into the top 30 promises made by former President Donald Trump during his time in office. From bold statements on the economy to ambitious plans for national security, we're unpacking the pledges that shaped his presidency and left a lasting mark on America. Trump supported mandating E-Verify to ensure businesses hired only legal workers, aiming to curb illegal immigration by reducing employment opportunities for undocumented workers, which he argued would reduce incentive for unlawful entry. Trump promised to reduce the national deficit through economic growth and spending cuts. Although the deficit increased during his tenure, he maintained that his economic policies were key to achieving eventual fiscal responsibility. Trump committed to defending American agriculture by addressing trade imbalances that he argued hurt U.S. farmers. His administration introduced subsidies and negotiated agreements intended to counteract losses due to tariffs. In his trade war with China, Trump implemented tariffs, fulfilling his promise to address trade imbalances. His administration aimed to pressure China into fairer trade practices and reduce the U.S. trade deficit. Trump promised to restrict access to late-term abortions, aligning with pro-life groups. His stance included policies and appointments aimed at curtailing abortion rights, sparking significant debate over reproductive rights. Although widely discussed, Trump's infrastructure promise to build new roads, highways, and bridges faced challenges in Congress. He aimed for a large-scale initiative to revitalize American infrastructure, which he argued was outdated and in need of investment. Trump promised to reduce foreign aid to nations he argued were not aligned with American interests. His approach sought to ensure that taxpayer dollars supported allies in critical objectives rather than adversarial regimes. Trump pledged to bolster U.S. cybersecurity to counteract threats from foreign actors. His administration initiated several policies to safeguard critical systems, especially in response to increasing concerns about cyber attacks. With the First Step Act, Trump fulfilled his promise for criminal justice reform, which aimed to reduce sentences for nonviolent offenders and support re-entry programs. This bipartisan effort sought to create fairer sentencing and rehabilitation options. Trump proposed ending birthright citizenship for children of undocumented immigrants, arguing it incentivized illegal immigration. Although controversial and difficult to implement, he advocated for a more restrictive interpretation of immigration laws. Trump aimed to reduce prescription drug costs, pledging to introduce measures for competitive pricing and address practices like price gouging. His administration's policies included allowing states to import cheaper drugs from Canada. Throughout his presidency, Trump emphasized a strong stance on law and order, pledging to support law enforcement, address crime, and reduce urban violence. He also responded to protests and unrest by calling for strict measures to maintain peace. Trump's energy policies focused on achieving U.S. energy independence by expanding oil, coal, and natural gas production. He argued that reducing reliance on foreign energy would bolster national security and create jobs in the energy sector. Trump assured Americans he would protect Social Security and Medicare, resisting cuts to these programs. He positioned himself as a defender of these essential safety nets for seniors, despite potential budget pressures. Trump promised to improve care for veterans by expanding access to health services, including the VA Mission Act. This allowed veterans to seek private care if VA facilities couldn't meet their needs promptly, aiming for better and more flexible care. Trump vowed to reduce U.S. involvement in prolonged Middle Eastern conflicts, promising to bring American troops home. He argued that these wars drained resources and detracted from U.S. interests, seeking instead to focus on diplomacy and targeted actions. Trump frequently criticized NATO allies for not meeting defense spending commitments, pledging to push them to contribute more. He argued that the U.S. bore an unfair share of the financial burden, and his efforts led to increased contributions from some member nations. Trump promised to implement extreme vetting and restrict immigration from countries considered to be high risk for terrorism. This led to his controversial travel bans, aimed at preventing potential threats from entering the U.S. Alongside his border wall promise, Trump vowed to deport criminal illegal immigrants and prioritize immigration enforcement. He supported policies like sanctuary city crackdowns, aiming to reduce crime and enhance public safety. Trump fulfilled his promise to withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement, citing that it unfairly burdened American businesses and workers. He advocated for energy independence and asserted that the U.S. could manage its environmental policies without international agreements. Asserting that the U.S. military was depleted, Trump promised to rebuild it by increasing defense spending, upgrading technology, and modernizing equipment. He emphasized a stronger military presence to protect U.S. interests and deter foreign threats. Trump proposed expanding school choice, advocating for voucher programs and charter schools as alternatives to public education. His promise focused on giving parents the freedom to choose schools that best met their children's needs, especially in underserved communities. Throughout his campaign, Trump pledged to protect the right to bear arms, aligning with the NRA and other gun rights organizations. He argued that lawful gun ownership is essential for self-defense and vowed to oppose legislation restricting these rights. Trump promised to appoint conservative judges who would interpret the Constitution as written. His administration successfully nominated 3 Supreme Court justices, shifting the court's ideological balance for years to come. With the goal of fostering a pro-business environment, Trump pledged to cut back on federal regulations, which he claims stifled economic growth and innovation. He introduced policies to eliminate 2 regulations for every new one created, focusing on industries like energy and finance. Trump committed to revising existing trade agreements, notably renegotiating NAFTA into the USMCA. He argued that previous deals were unfair and that new agreements would protect American industries, reduce trade deficits, and benefit American workers. Trump's America First policy promised to revitalize the manufacturing sector by renegotiating trade deals, imposing tariffs on imported goods, and incentivizing companies to bring jobs back to American soil, with a focus on states hardest hit by industrial job losses. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 was a key Trump achievement, which promised and delivered tax cuts. Trump argued this would stimulate economic growth, help working-class Americans keep more of their earnings, and enable businesses to reinvest in the U.S. economy. Trump pledged to dismantle Obamacare, which he argued led to higher premiums and reduced options for many Americans. He aimed to replace it with a new plan providing better health care for all Americans, including protections for pre-existing conditions and affordable care options. Trump's signature campaign promise was to construct a border wall between the U.S. and Mexico to control illegal immigration. He vowed to build it extensively, promising to make Mexico pay for it. This promise became a significant and symbolic pillar of his immigration policy, aiming to curb unlawful crossings and bolster national security. Thanks for watching Vanguard 12 Minutes. We hope this deep dive into Trump's top 30 promises gave you a better look at his presidential legacy. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more insightful content.